Hello, welcome back to my web series. I've talked previously about transitions and how I adjusted to living life in Cape Town, South Africa, where I was studying abroad. But I wanted to talk a little bit more in this video about some of the activities and things I did in order to make myself feel more at home and how I occupied my time. Just to give a little bit of background, at GW, my home university, I do a lot of extracurriculars as well as working. So I do student activism, I do student theater, and I also have a job. So my time is pretty busy there. I have lots of things to do on top of school, and I enjoy that because I like to be busy, I like to have things to do, I like to make lists and kind of complete tasks. And it's also really fun for me because I get to work on things that I'm passionate about and that really matter to me. So coming into Cape Town, it was a little bit more relaxed, and that's obviously a big change, but it's what I wanted. I kind of wanted to take a little bit more of a back seat on everything and kind of witness it happening instead of taking a big leadership role, because I felt like I'd been doing that for a long time and I needed a little bit of a break. So when I came to Cape Town, I was like, all right, I'm going to try to see where I can engage myself, where I can be involved, and learn the most, but also not burn myself out and feel like I had the good balance of experiences between being involved and kind of just watching. And that's not to say that I didn't want to help where people asked me to, but I didn't want to actively seek out a lot of things to do in order to completely occupy my time, which I tend to do a lot in other parts of my life. And sometimes it proves to be really fun, and I like the busyness and the urgency of it all. But other times it's really stressful, and you need to kind of learn your limits and know where to kind of step back and say, you know what, maybe I don't have time to do this. That's something I actually learned best in Cape Town, is how to know my own limits, because I was able to examine where I hadn't really been knowing my limits, because I was like, wow, well, life would really be a lot easier if I was able to pick and choose these priorities. Anyway, I originally wanted to be more heavily involved in the things I ended up doing, but I think the small tastes I had of each thing I did was better because I could see more and do more and focus on a lot of different little places and projects instead of occupying all of my time with just one. One of my RAs actually created a program the semester that I was in Cape Town to transport students from my program and take them to schools around the area and teach younger students how to read and just interact with them, which was really cool because I've done that many times before in the US, both in high school and in college. And I really like to work with kids, so working with kids in a completely different place of the world was really rewarding, especially since you learn what kind of primary education they have and what it's like to be a student there, period. It was really interesting to see because, as I've said in previous videos, South Africa has 11 national languages, and English is spoken in all the schools. It's mandatory to be taught in all the schools, and so is Afrikaans in a big majority of the schools. Even if you don't come from backgrounds that speak English or Afrikaans, you are required to learn those languages. It, to me, was very eye-opening to see, especially since in the school that we visited, a lot of the students didn't come from backgrounds where English and Afrikaans were spoken in their households, primarily by their families and their parents and their loved ones. A lot of the students we worked with actually in the classrooms we visited primarily spoke Xhosa at home. So it was interesting because you would need to communicate with them in a way that they understood, even though you didn't actually speak much of the language that they primarily knew. But it was really unfortunate to witness kind of students struggling to learn these two languages that were not native to their households. Kind of shows the language and cultural erasure that apartheid promoted, and that's still present even if that actual legislation isn't really in place. I talked a little bit about how there's a myth of living in this post-racial society, and that just is a myth. It's not true. It's obvious to me through these experiences and just like witnessing everyday life in Cape Town that it's very much not post-racial, just because the actual government of apartheid is over, or, you know, overthrown, or whatever kind of language you want to use, doesn't mean that the after effects are not still in place. So that was one of the things I did, kind of as an extracurricular. It was an awesome opportunity, definitely eye-opening, in the sense that I learned a lot outside of a classroom setting, which I always think is really valuable. My other big activity, which wasn't actually related to school at all, was dancing. I've danced my whole life, a lot of different styles, ranging from Persian classical dance to ballet, to hip-hop, to Afro-Haitian dance, to tap dance. And last year I got involved in salsa dancing right before I left for Cape Town. So it was kind of a way for me to find a community that I connected with, and as soon as I got to Cape Town, I was looking for places that I could go to just social dance, not necessarily take classes, but meet people and share that experience with them. I did find a place pretty early on, which I was lucky to do, and I ended up spending almost every weekend with the same people. Social salsa dancing for me, or social Latin dancing really, because you do a lot more than salsa, is so fun because you don't really have to know anyone, you don't have to bring a partner, you kind of just show up and then people will ask you to dance, you can ask other people to dance, and they're very, very open to teaching you. The first few times that I went, I always would preface my dance with someone by saying, I'm really new and I don't really know how to do this, like, can you teach me a little bit? And I never was met with anybody who was annoyed or frustrated that I wasn't on the same level as maybe everybody else there. They were always open to teaching me and always excited that I was getting into this dance and wanted them to be a part of my learning experience. I'm a pretty social person. I like to make friends, so it might be a little bit harder if you are not as inclined to meet people, but it's definitely a warm and welcoming atmosphere. I immediately befriended the people who ran the salsa night that I initially went to, and then through them I met so many different people who had their own dance companies or had their own social salsa nights in other places, and I actually befriended people who organized the Cape Town Salsa Festival, which I got to attend at the very end of my time in Cape Town, and it was just an amazing end to my experience in South Africa. The amazing thing, which I was really proud of myself for doing, was seeking out that community in the first place, because it wasn't really introduced to me by my program. Nobody really knew about salsa dancing there or really went regularly, or at all for that matter. So at the end of my time, when I had spent all these months making new friends, completely external of this kind of American bubble that my program was, it was really nice because a lot of people commended me on having the courage to go out and find friends or go alone to this place where I didn't really know anybody. It takes a lot of trust in yourself to do something like that, but when it goes as well as it did for me, it's so rewarding, and that was definitely probably my favorite experience of my time in Cape Town, was making friends with the people in the salsa community and getting to go to the Cape Town Salsa Festival and making friends that I will always remember and hope to visit someday again. I had a lot of friends who did student organizing and student activism, both in my program and in my classes at University of Cape Town. And during my time there, there was a lot of activism surrounding the fee increase. So the movement was called Fees Must Fall, and I'll talk a lot about that in a different video because it definitely deserves a segment of its own. Basically, it was interesting to see from a foreign perspective how student activism worked in Cape Town, to witness that and to kind of understand what it meant to be a part of that movement and a part of the student body at a time in Cape Town's history and UCT's history, and I learned so much from just having conversations with my South African friends. So I'll talk about that more in the next video, but that was something that I just witnessed, and coming from student activism, background myself, it was definitely interesting to see the tactics used and the way conversations were framed, and the fact that the whole university was hearing about this, whereas at my home university at GW, sometimes it's really hard to get big movements like that on their feet because not everybody thinks that they can be involved if they're not in the student activism community, and a lot of times people just don't care. But anyway, those were the kind of big things that I was involved in or involved myself in. In order to integrate, I also wanted to do smaller things that were familiar to me, so seeing performances like plays or dance shows. I did get to see Alvin Ailey while I was in Cape Town, and it was incredible. It was so phenomenal. I strongly recommend that if you ever get the chance, you should definitely see them. But I also got to see a lot of different plays. I saw a production of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf in Afrikaans, and that was just awesome because you got to experience the play from two different perspectives of the original text and then speaking it in Afrikaans with Afrikaans actors and actresses. So my advice to anybody who is looking for ways to integrate into their location for studying abroad, whether that's in Cape Town or somewhere completely different, just look for things that are vaguely familiar to you, just like I did with the theater and the student activism, and meet people through there, and you'll have something in common with them, and you can cultivate that and learn more about their individual interests, and you'll kind of branch out like that and have experiences that you might not expect, but I'm sure you will definitely enjoy. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.